Hello everyone, this is On The Clock. I'm Griffin.
I'm Marlon.
And we're here for a good time. Not a long one. Okay. So we had a great, fantastic game the other day. It's Packers versus Eagles. Mm-hmm. Even with the Packers losing, I like what I saw.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers showed me a lot. The offense looked pretty good, except for the running game. Aaron Rodgers led the team in rushing with only 46 yards, which is a problem. But the passing game looked good, which is, I think, what they would needed to take most away from this game. So that's good.
Absolutely agree. I think my big takeaway was this entire season, Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked like he has in the past. Mm-hmm. And today he finally looked like he has.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people have been talking about that Packers defense. And they give up 34 points to a good team finally. So do you think that's like them playing kind of better, or not worse, but offenses that aren't as good, and like the Bears and Denver making their defense look better? Or do you think this was just a flash in the pan type of game where they give up 34 points, but the defense is still good for the Packers?
I think the defense is good, but I think a lot of the hype based around them was due to the fact that they were playing the Bears, the Broncos.
Offenses that are not good at all.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we saw with the Ravens last week going up against Kansas City. Mm-hmm. You know, their offense looked so much more explosive against Miami Dolphins because of who they were playing.
Yeah, it's Miami.
Something else that I'd like to say, though, with Aaron Rodgers and throwing the ball so much, and you know, he got down those yards, it was Davante Adams.
Yeah.
That was his target.
Yeah, that was a separating factor. A lot of those passes were like, give it to Davante Adams, and he makes the play after. He got a lot of like receiving yards after the catch, which was amazing. Like, he broke a lot of tackles, got elusive. He looked really good out there.
So I ask you, you know, they come down the field, at the very end of the game. Aaron Rodgers is at the goal line, 2-yard line, decides to pass it, gets intercepted. Reminded me a lot of the old Super Bowl.
We don't talk about it.
Oh, we talk about it.
We don't talk about it. We don't talk about it.
Yeah, especially for Falcons fans over there. But, you know, you come down, it gets intercepted. If Davante Adams is in the game, how does that play look?
I could see a lot of different plays if he's in. You could do a jet sweep with Davante Adams. You could run a screen with Davante Adams with the way he was getting elusive, breaking tackles out there. Maybe he just finds a way to get into the end zone. I think they decided to throw it because of their lack of a running game in this game. Like, it looked pretty bad out there for the runners. So I think that was, like, the biggest part of that, why they decided to throw it. But I think if they could have gotten the ball to Davante Adams with him out there, that would have made all the difference on that play.
Absolutely. And then also thinking, too, you know, you're looking into the game a little bit earlier than that. They had a good drive down the field, go for it, fourth and right next to the goal line.
Right.
Throws it to the back of the end zone. And Jimmy Graham, with a very catchable ball, put his one hand up and dropped it. If you're Aaron Rodgers, are you going back to the sideline and kind of looking at him like, hey, I put that where both hands could reach it? You're not OBJ. What are you trying to do?
I think so, because it was, like you said, it was a very catchable ball. So I think when it's catchable, even Odell is not going to go, let me snag this with one hand. He's going to go for the safe catch. Yeah. So if you're Jimmy Graham, because the Jimmy Graham from years ago would have made that catch from Drew Brees.
Oh, yeah.
Would have came down with that. So I think he has to get back to whatever it was he lost after leaving New Orleans. He has to get back to that, because he has another great quarterback who can get him the ball the same way as Drew Brees could have. So he could still be one of those tight ends again. He just has to get back to whatever he lost at that time.
Absolutely. And then, you know, on the opposite side, you know, we're talking about the struggles of running for the Packers. Eagles did not find that struggle.
No. They actually found their running game with Jordan Howard out there. 2 touchdowns. He looked really good, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And then that kind of bailed out Carson Wentz in a lot of ways. He only left this game with 160 passing yards, but their running attack was amazing for only, I think, 82 yards for Jordan Howard. And then Carson Wentz also threw 3 touchdowns. So the times that he was able to throw the ball and get it, it looked pretty efficient out there, especially in the red zone. He was getting the ball out, and then Jordan Howard would just get through the line pretty easily.
I also think, you look at Carson Wentz stats, 16 for 27 on the game. And the thing that, when you look at those stats that they don't really show you is the fact that those, 11 missed passes, majority were not his fault.
Right, yeah.
The main thing that I say is the balls passed to Alshon Jeffrey, which I hate to say this because, he did score a touchdown, and he made good plays.
Right.
But if you look at how many times the ball was thrown to him versus how many times he caught it, that number is not a good number.
Because I look at a guy even like Nelson Aguilar, who had a solid game last week, caught nothing this week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the video where the fan pretty much went at Nelson Aguilar about catching babies out the window. Unlike Aguilar, it's kind of true because he was only targeted maybe once or twice yesterday, but it's also you didn't get open. You would have gotten the ball if you were open, but it's probably a lack of trust there at this point if you keep dropping the ball. So I think that's a lot of mistrust there between the quarterback and the receiver, which you don't want to have, especially going into mid-season at this point. So
my question is, if you already are Wentz, you have that mistrust with Aguilar. Can you afford to have that mistrust with Jeffrey as well?
No. As a quarterback, you really can't afford to have a mistrust with any of your receivers, especially if it's a guy like Alshon Jeffrey and it's a guy like Nelson Aguilar, who are supposed to be some of your better receivers. So I think you have to have that trust, especially because you don't want to force the ball to anyone because maybe you trust a guy like Deshaun Jackson. You don't want to force it to Deshaun Jackson all the time because you have a trust in him, because you're going to have to rely on Aguilar, you're going to have to rely on Alshon at some point. So you need to have a way where you can build some type of trust, whether that's just getting them quickly involved on a slant routes, just getting the ball in their hands so they get a feel of it. Maybe that's what they have to do. But maybe the play calls have to be a little bit different to get those guys involved because they seem a little bit less engaged when they don't have the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, speaking of having the ball, we already mentioned Adams went off last night.
Yeah.
Got injured right towards the end there. Was taken off the field. Packers end up losing. We already discussed, we think that if he was still in the game, not going to say the outcome's different, but there's a higher chance it is.
Yeah.
Who needs to be the guy that steps up in place of Adams?
I think, kind of like we already talked about, I don't want to say Jimmy Graham, but I think when we've seen of Jimmy Graham already in his career, we've seen that he can be that guy. So I think I don't want it to be too much to ask to say, can you be a number one target for maybe if he's out for a few weeks or whatever? Can you be a number one target for a small amount of time? Maybe Marquez Valdes-Scantling does whatever.
That's a name.
Yeah. Maybe Scantling kind of steps up a little. I won't say he's going to be a number one, but maybe he can step up, be your number 3, 2, because Geronimo Allison looked really good yesterday as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think they're going to have to just do this by committee because I don't think they have that next guy who can be your Jarvis to your Odell. I don't think they have that guy.
Yeah, you so maybe they Thielen.
Yeah. So they're going to need a guy like their whole team to just kind of step up and run it by committee.
Which, speaking, I just use the analogy Stephon to Thielen. There's rumors going around, Diggs asking for a trade. Do you think Minnesota takes him for Ramsey?
I don't know, because I don't know if that's going to make the difference for them in terms of trading your second best receiver, who on some nights can be your best receiver easily, for one of the better corners in the league, if not the best corner. I don't know if it's going to do much for them as a team to get them to that next level in terms of playoffs, whether you project them to make the playoffs and win one game or just make it and lose that game. Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to be that much of a difference maker for them. So I think that'll be a tough call. Maybe depending on how much you have to give up along with Stephon Diggs, maybe that's the deciding factor. But I think you have to be tough. You have to kind of think that one out a little bit more.
And then the other option, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, do you say, okay, let's make him happy? Do you think this upcoming week Kirk Cousins tries to target Stephon Diggs more, to make him a little bit happier?
I think they do. Or maybe not Kirk Cousins passing to him more. Maybe the play calls are kind of directed to him more.
Okay.
I'm not going to say he's going to get it, but maybe the coach goes out and says, all right, we're going to call these plays more for him. Now, if Kirk Cousins decides to throw the ball to him, that's a different story. But I think they'll actually see a difference in, all right, we want you to get the ball because we know how special you are.
Yeah.
And we know how special you can be with the ball. So I think that's going to be a difference in terms of their offensive play call. So he's going to be a lot more kind of looked at in terms of their offense and kind of try to feed it more to him. And maybe not as much running it through Dalvin Cook. Maybe not as much running it or throwing it to Adam Thielen.
Yeah. That division, that's a tough division. You got the Vikings, you got the Bears, you got the Packers. Mm-hmm. That division's looking...
It's looking stacked.
It's looking like one of the better divisions, inside the NFL. Mm-hmm. Even the Lions are, 2-0-1.
Yeah.
I at this point in time, I'd say that's the best division currently in the NFL.
Yeah, because it's extremely closely competitive where just about every team in the division seems like they have a chance to make it to the playoffs and have a solid run if they get there. So it's really interesting, and it probably, I agree, it's probably the best division in the league.
So
at this point,
it's one of those things where you can't afford, the Packers can't afford to not have anyone step up for Adams. Mm-hmm. The Bears can't afford Mitch Trubisky. Straight up, the Lions can't afford to make any of these mistakes. And lastly, the Vikings cannot afford not to use the main targets.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting, I think. But
for sure.
I think the rest of this week 4 will spell out, and we'll start to see a lot more of what each team has now that you get away from all the bad teams, all the good teams.
Mm-hmm. Now you're kind of seeing the separation between teams. Like, there's still kind of those tweeners. Like, I'll say the Browns are a tweener team where you don't know how good they can be still for this year. But I think maybe this week for them could kind of show that. But I think you have that separation where it's like, we know these teams are going to be good. We know these teams are bad. Yeah. And there's like a slight picking between which ones are still in that betweener spot. But, yeah, it's definitely separation in the league now.
So I think that's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
Not really. Just looking forward to this week's games, honestly. Yeah. It's going to be a good week. It's Sunday. Don't know about Monday, but Sunday will be good.
Already throwing out that dig, huh?
I'm just ready for these Monday night games to kind of step up a little bit, but so it'll be worth it sooner or later.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you guys later.